Are you in the picture enough, Joe?
I think so.
All right, because we can move that camera back a little bit if we
Nobody
want
wants to see
to.
my face.
All right. Well, good morning, Joe. How are you today?
I am doing well. Happy to be back in the saddle.
You know, Joe, he reached out to me. Joe reached out to me, I don't know, a couple days ago, maybe it was, and he said, hey, Bob, how about we got to do a Faith and Freedom show? This whole thing, Biden is driving me nuts. And I said, great, Joe, let's do it. We've been relaxed and doing
Summertime.
Yeah, it's summertime,
I
and it's
know.
just so difficult to, get together. And while this show is about an hour long, we're probably here for 90 minutes to 2 hours, something like that, between setting up and cranking down.
Well, it's time to make it happen.
It is time to make it happen. And I understand you're going on vacation tomorrow.
I am. I can't wait.
You going out of state?
I am.
Are you?
Ocean City.
Ocean City.
Yeah.
How long?
6 days.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
Should be fun.
Yeah,
be fun.
you guys should have. You guys should have a blast. Everybody doing well?
Yeah, we're great.
Good.
We're doing great.
COVID's not been an issue in your home?
No.
Okay.
You?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Us either.
Yeah.
But
It's raging though.
they say it's
Yeah.
raging, right? They say it's raging. I am reading so many articles, Joe, on just the incredible overreach by government, whether it's the U.S. or specific states, with this Delta variant thing, right? So the county of Los Angeles, you're back to wearing masks indoors, mandatory. And if you looked at the graph of around a year ago where COVID cases were spiking and the mask mandate went in essentially across the country, not every state did a mask mandate, but most of them did. If this was the spike on a graph back then, this is the spike now, and I'm not kidding you.
No, yeah, they're definitely being more ambiguous in the numbers, I feel. Making it seem like this is a absolute catastrophic, spike raging, although Delta variant, from everything that I understand, is more transmissible. It's far less deadly.
Right. They're calling it more like a flu.
Yeah.
More like a flu. And yet, we've got Biden recently was on the air, first of all, telling people that haven't been vaccinated that they're the cause for all this. There is a new article this morning that I did not read in depth, but in Massachusetts, there are now more than 5,000 people that have gotten COVID-19 that have been vaccinated.
Yeah, the breakthrough cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Massachusetts seems to be inordinately hit with breakthrough cases. We were told in the beginning that this was 95%. Most of these vaccines were 95% effective against the COVID-19. Now, that at the time didn't include these variants that are coming up. And I just read another article by Dr. Mercola, who said that vaccines will always give an opportunity for a virus to morph into something different, right? Sure. So he's not a guy that would be readily, the White House isn't bringing him on the air, right? Because he's not a pro COVID-19 vaccine guy. And frankly, neither am I. And I have a couple of reasons for that. Number one, I don't like the fact that the drug companies can't be sued if something dramatic takes place. And number two, I don't like the fact that the opposing ideas and thoughts about this vaccine from doctors and scientists and virologists and immunologists, that anything that goes against what the government wants you to hear is being blocked.
Sure, misinformation and
it's called misinformation,
right? And it's restricted,
and it's very restricted. And three, I love my country. I don't trust my government.
Sure.
And when the government tells me that I've got to do this, that you have to do it, they're going to force me to do it. There's just something inside me that says there's something wrong with that.
Sure.
So those are reasons for me to be against the the forcing of the vaccine. I was listening to a guy yesterday, I think, and he said, "Look, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. This is apolitical. I'm just a pro-freedom guy, and therefore I think this should always be a personal decision that everybody makes."
I agree. I think that that's how it should be. I'm more comfortable talking about the fact now that I got the vaccine.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was forced to get it. That actually bothered me. It bothered me a lot to think about the fact that, like what de Blasio is proposing in New York right now, he's proposing that you have to be fully vaccinated to go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
You have to show, right? We talked about that a while back. Is this something that's going to happen? Am I going to have to show proof of vaccination to be able to do, everyday things? That bothers me. I don't like that at all. Yeah, I don't know. My wife is a scientist, and I know other people who are in the medical field, and I felt that for me it was the right thing.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't feel that it's the right thing, that's okay too.
Right.
And you should be able to make that choice. That's the difference, right? Right now they're trying to make it hard for you to be a part of the group of people who choose not to be vaccinated. They want to make life hard for you, make it impossible for you to do the things that you want to do, and that's where the rub really happens for me.
The other thing I forgot to mention why I'm against this forced vaccination is because it's still being used under emergency use.
Right, sure.
Right? It has not been declared a safe vaccine under the normal
Sure.
procedures under which a new vaccine is tested and the trials that it goes under. So
they also said though that the sixth toe that I'm getting on my left foot is going to be
has nothing to do with the vaccine,
nothing to
right?
do with it.
And there have been, I'll admit, I mean, we've got I don't know what it is, 175 million people have been vaccinated in the U.S. or something, and there's been over 600,000 that have reportedly died from the virus. Again, my antenna goes up when I hear this stuff, right?
I agree.
Somebody that says you've got to do this, and one of the reasons is because look at what could happen to you if you don't. I just think they're massaging the data to make their side look very good, right? So it's an emergency use vaccine. All of them are at this point, and there's been enough. Look, if this was anything besides. And I like the way the Epoch Times, which incidentally, if you're not a subscriber to the Epoch Times, you need to check that newspaper out. It's electronic, mostly electronic. It is an outstanding source of information, unbiased. They refuse to call COVID-19 anything but the CCP virus. That's it, right? The Chinese Communist Party virus. They think it was an attack on the U.S. and on the world, and frankly, I'm inclined to believe that.
I mean,
that's
data
exactly
seems to be moving in that direction. I mean, it was something that was said by Trump, a year ago, year and a half ago, and they told him he was nuts. But
they said that he would call it the Chinese virus.
Yeah,
and a reporter said, "Why do you keep calling it that?" He said, "Because it started in China." It started in China, and it did. And of course, anything he said, the left went totally against him.
That's right.
Which, quite frankly, Joe, brings me up to another thing. With regard to this vaccine, and that is that. Hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and there's one other, have been proven to be pretty good at fighting that disease.
Sure, like a therapeutic, right?
Yeah, and reducing the severity of the disease. Donald Trump said that's the way to go, and of course the left had to say that's not the way to go. And so now you can't get a doctor. You can, but for all intents and purposes, you can't find a doctor to prescribe hydroxychloroquine when you have COVID. They just won't do it. And that just, I've got a lot more to say on COVID, and I'm sure you do as well. But that brings me, I want to take a little side trail for a second here. I read an article about 2 or 3 weeks ago about a nurse who left her profession to join a group that is fighting for complete openness and honesty in the medical field. And she said, right now, let me tell you the way it is. with the AMA, the American Medical Association, with the American Hospital Associations, with all these major entities that represent the medical community. It is extremely important, if not virtually mandatory, that you as a medical professional comply with what they say is right. So if the AMA says that the only thing that works is the vaccine, that's it, nothing else is worthwhile, and you're a doctor, and you say, wait a minute, I've got data, scientific data, that something else works, you'll be canceled. You'll be canceled by these large associations. They don't say you're a whack job, but you'll
just be silenced, right?
Right, you'll be silenced.
Sure.
And as a doctor, you can't have that, right? Because all of a sudden the patients stop coming, and you can't get the word out or anything like that. So this nurse left and said, we've got to fix this. There's always at least two ways to look at something. And as an example, if you go back far enough, when a woman initially, like 25 years ago or so, was if she was diagnosed with breast cancer, there was one solution according to the AMA, and that was radical mastectomy.
Sure.
That was it. There was no choice. Look where we are today.
Sure.
Because some doctor said, wait a minute, this cancer is not bad enough that we have to do this radical surgery. Let's try something else, and it works.
Sure.
And how does that come about? It comes about by listening to others that are on the leading edge.
The researchers.
Leading edge of research. Exactly. And so this thing, Joe, boils down to, I believe this. It is the first pandemic that has been politicized that I'm ever aware of. The government has taken action against the swine flu and the bird flu and Legionnaire's disease and that kind of stuff, and those things are good, right? But I take the attitude of Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, that said, listen, my job, this is when everybody was shut down, and she didn't shut down her state. Never ordered anybody to wear a mask, never ordered a business to close. And she said, here's my job. My job is to be a data gatherer with my people and to announce that data, what's going on, so that the people of South Dakota can make their own reasonable decisions on what they want to do.
I mean, that's perfect.
We are responsible individuals and responsible American citizens.
For ourselves. That's right.
You know, whenever the government says, and they do it all the time, Joe, we know what's better for you than you do.
Yeah.
That is a freedom sucker.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not much for limited government.
No, it's not. And, you know, nobody's reading the Constitution anymore.
No.
Right? But anytime the government does those things, it's crushing our freedoms.
Right.
You know, we're going to take this amount of money from you because we know what to do with it better than you do.
Right.
We're going to control your health care because we know what's better. We know how to better take care of your health than you do. And it goes on and on from there. And it's just for freedom-loving people. The name of our show is Faith and Freedom, right? And for freedom-loving people, all these things are sometimes tiny steps, sometimes large steps toward removing our freedom.
Yeah. I don't know if you would have asked most people if we could be where we are today 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. I don't know if they would think that we would be here. No, that's impossible. The government wouldn't do that. They wouldn't shut the country down. They wouldn't be requiring people to, get vaccines and wear masks and you're crazy. No, it's been 2 years. And I mean, I would say that America has kind of taken a drastic turn from where it was even 4 or 5 years ago.
Drastic turn. Remember how this started out? We need to shut down for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, people. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't remember when that was, if it was March or April, but here we are over a year later.
A year and a half later.
Year
we're
and a
still
half
trying
later.
to recover from it. There's still people that aren't back to work. there are still people or companies who are trying to hire people that can't hire people because the government is paying them to stay home.
Yep.
Right. That's ending on September 6th.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Absolutely.
Thank goodness. Supply
Absolutely.
lines and all of that is so disrupted right now. At my job, we're experiencing all kinds of shortages in product that we usually have on hand and we can't get months out. Right. From what I understand, there's container ships that are just lined up in the Pacific waiting to come in because there's nobody at the docks to unload these ships. And it's really disrupting, everything. Everything is disrupted still.
It is. I was, in our business, we are in a similar situation, Joe, where we're looking at products that used to take 2 to 4 weeks are seriously now 3 to 5 months.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible disruption. I was talking to an individual at one of the manufacturers that we represent, and she said, I said, boy, this is really, really a bad situation. And she said, listen to what's going on now. So China will fill a container for us. And she said, a year and a half ago, it would have been $10,000 for us to get that container to the U.S. It's now $20,000, but it even goes beyond that. They'll say to her or to the company, the container's full, it's ready to go. What are you going to pay us? And they said, she gave me an example and said, well, we agreed upon $20,000. And they said, well, we have other containers we can ship ahead of you, and they're willing to pay $25,000 a container. So they're just squeezing.
Sure.
They, meaning China,
yeah,
are just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing us, and it's not going well. It's not going well at all. I mean, when you can't get product to complete projects, whatever it is, whether it's building a new building or getting your car on the road or buying a new car. How about the fact that you almost can't buy a new car?
No, supply is way down.
Way down, and we've got we ordered a new car in, where are we now? July. We ordered a new car in May.
Yeah.
And our lease on our existing car is up in September. And we get these updates from the manufacturer as to where the car is in its progress toward being made. The only update we got was, we got your order. This is May.
Yeah.
This is May. So June and July are gone. That's 60 days, and it might have been a week or two in May. And we don't know if we're going to get the car in September or October.
Sure.
Don't know.
Sure. I have a lease that's coming up too, September as well, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to buy the lease out.
Yeah.
There's what I want, I can't get.
And it's
nothing
unbelievable.
There. So
for us, we got a little bit of an out because we're getting the new car from the same manufacturer as our old, so they will extend our lease.
Yeah, that's good. Like month to month. Yeah, that's nice.
Until the new one comes in. But going back to COVID for a minute here, how about the fact that the illegals crossing the border are coming in with COVID?
Yep.
And the White House will not even tell the public if they're checking those people to see whether or not they are COVID positive.
No, and they are definitely sending people all across the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's very interesting to see how they're willing to lock down American citizens, force them to vaccinate or try to force them to vaccinate. And then we have people crossing our border illegally, and they're just welcoming them with open arms and then sending them right into the country. It's like, it's just it just seems so like it's opposite of what they're telling us that we have to do. And, what's happening?
That's the question. What's happening to our country?
What's the motivation behind it? That it also makes me think that there's is there some sort of hidden agenda with bringing them in with COVID? Do they want to keep the COVID pandemic rolling because they can keep the emergency power, because they could change the way that elections are performed, right? There's obviously, we saw an unprecedented election cycle with the way that people voted, with the amount of time you had to vote, and it makes me curious to know, are they trying to extend the pandemic into the midterms? Because right now it looks like the Democrats are going to get hammered during the midterms.
It seems that way, yeah.
And are they doing this to be able to change election law? Oh, there's an emergency. There's a pandemic. We get to change the way things are. Are they trying to buffer what's going to happen? I don't know, but I don't trust it.
I don't trust it either, Joe. And I think you're right. I would agree with you that the 2022 elections look like they're really going to go toward the GOP. Here's the deal, and here's why I think that's true. Donald Trump was the president of the economy. Mm-hmm. The guy was outstanding from a standpoint of understanding how economics works. He was great with regard to putting America first with the nations abroad that supply our nation with products. Joe Biden, if he won legitimately, and I think the jury is out on that still too. I mean, when your government lies to you and you get caught over and over and over again, you start to question everything they say as to what's the truthfulness of it, right? But Joe Biden, at least in part, was probably elected because he was going to be the COVID crushing president. Mm-hmm. He made his points during at least one, if not more, of the debates, and he was going to make COVID go away. Well, with the fact that COVID's not going away, he has an approval rating that's below 50%.
Sure.
Matter of fact, the Supreme Court has an approval rating under 50%. Congress is somewhere around 20%. They're filled with morons there too. But the fact that COVID is still a big problem is a big problem for Joe Biden.
Right.
But you're still making a good point, and that is, what's the end game here?
Right. What are we trying to accomplish?
Right. What's the end game by allowing, so far, over 1 million illegals have been allowed to come into the country since Joe Biden's been president. Last month, I think it was almost 189,000 people. It averages 6,300 illegal immigrants being apprehended every single day on average.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just incredible to me that out of all of these illegals, and to your point, they're transporting them around
all
the
over
country.
the country.
Right? They're transporting them around the country. Why isn't the government disallowing their entry? First of all, they should disallow their entry on the fact that they're illegal coming into the country, turn them around and send them back. Right? But now you're letting them in and they might be COVID positive?
I don't think that there's a might. I think that there's quite a few of them who are testing positive.
There are.
Right. It's not even a might. They are.
Yeah.
And then they're going all over the place, and it's just it doesn't match up with what they're not doing what they preach. The Democrats aren't doing what they preach.
They're following the science.
They're trying to protect the American people, but then they're doing, something like it just it's mind-blowing to me. And it's more mind-blowing to me that people don't see it more.
People, there's a lot of people that are very, very afraid of this virus.
Yeah.
They are, and my reason for that ultimately is the fact that they're afraid to die because, God says in the book of Ecclesiastes, I think it's chapter 3, he says, God has put eternity in the hearts of men.
Sure.
And you can deny God. You can say, I'm an atheist. You can do all that stuff that you want. But deep, deep down inside, that when you die, it's not just ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? And so I think people are scared to death to die. They will do whatever it takes to stay alive for as long as they can because they know they're going to go into this, from their perspective, this unknown second life,
sure.
and they want to hold that off as long as possible.
Sure.
I think ultimately that's the real reason. But for whatever reason, there's a zillion people that are extremely afraid of this virus, pumped up in large part by the government.
Yeah.
It's all we hear every day.
I was going to say, it almost seems, and gosh, I'm quite sure that if YouTube gets a hold of this video that it will not be allowed to be put on the internet. But
Rumble, we put it on Rumble
that's right.
too.
I thought the other day, the way to get rid of COVID is to stop talking about it.
You know what?
Is that weird to say? I mean, I know that it really does affect some people, and I'm not saying that it's not real, and I'm not saying that it can't harm some, But I think the way to end the pandemic is to stop talking about it.
You know, that it at least to the extent that we are. Every time you turn on, I don't watch too much news, but I watch the local news.
Yeah.
There's a segment in every news program about what happened with COVID today.
Sure.
You know, in our county, in our city, in our area. And it's like, guys, I agree, Joe. It's real. It's a deadly disease.
Yes.
If the wrong person
That's
contracts
right.
it can and has killed over 600,000 Americans, if you believe the government's telling you the right deal. Even if they've doubled that, 300,000
It's a lot of
Americans,
people.
it's a lot of people.
Of course it's a lot of people.
A lot of people. And matter of fact, a friend of ours was going to a Josh Williams concert tonight at Kingdom Bound.
Yeah.
And he canceled the concert because he just contracted COVID. So it's a real disease. We understand.
I agree with that.
It's
again,
just
I got vaccinated again. Like, I believe that it's real.
Right.
But I don't know if I believe, at least at this point, that it's as dangerous as they're still making it out to be.
Do you know where we stand with whether or not, if you're vaccinated, do you have to wear a mask? Do you not have to wear a mask? If you have to wear a mask, is it everywhere? Do you have to wear it outside, inside?
I thought in May, Joe Biden said if you could ditch the mask if you got the vaccination.
And what's the CDC said most recently?
Well, now they're saying that, man, they recommend it for both.
Yeah.
They didn't mandate it, but they're recommending that even if you're vaccinated, if you're in a hot spot area, that you know, you might get that too. You might.
This is the fake news you can trust, by the way.
I love it. That's amazing.
Which way do I turn this? This way, right here.
Anyways, I mean, that's what it is. They keep moving the goalpost on this.
They do.
And it's unfair to the American people. And I know that they say, well, we're just following the most recent science. That's such an excuse to me.
It is.
It's an excuse to me when, like, the science isn't a being, right? It's not a thing. It is something that we need to come to a consensus on, right? It's like we're like all-knowing science. Get out of here.
Exactly.
No, science has been. If you're gonna just term it, like, how many times have you had a theory, or have we had, you know, an idea of how something works, to later find out that that's not how it is?
It was disproved.
Oh, I guess science was wrong.
Right.
No, we were wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole thing is evolving, right? So they keep jumping and changing the way we play this game, and we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
You know, the head of the CDC now is this gal, and I don't know her name, but if there's a hysteric that gets in front of a TV camera too often, it's her. Now she's stating that this thing there could be variants to this disease that she didn't say would end the world, but boy, I'm telling you something, she is really on the fringe and on the edge, and I don't believe her. I just don't believe her. You know, if we go back to the swine flu, which was a serious flu,
yeah,
and the government or Big Pharma came up with vaccines, and a few people started dying or contracting other diseases because of the vaccines. They stopped them immediately. Here's the deal. The swine flu went away by itself.
Right.
Went away by itself. We practiced good, you know, good hygiene is a good thing to practice all the time. Right?
I would hope, right?
Right, you would think so.
Like,
and I just think we've gone so far. Again, Kristi Noem at the Conservative Convention earlier this year said, COVID didn't destroy our economy. The government destroyed our economy.
Sure.
And if we relapse because the government does anything to stop us from recovery, I don't know if we'll ever be the same, Joe.
No, I don't think so. And yeah, I don't think so. I think she's exactly right. I had a thought and just escaped me. So we'll move on, I suppose.
So,
I remember.
Go ahead.
When do you suppose that the government will say all COVID restrictions are gone? Do you think it's going to be when there's 0 COVID cases? Like, is this going to is this a thing that could happen? Because we're talking about how many cases per day right now? Like right at the peak of the pandemic, we were probably seeing, between
thousands.
Yes, thousands of cases per day per city.
Right.
Huge amounts. And now, some cities are seeing, big cities, 500, 300. It's substantially lower than what it was at the height last year. When does this end? What is the goal of it, or the metric for us saying we're out of a pandemic, this is over, we could all move on?
So I'm going to tell you what the government told us 6 months ago.
Thank you.
You got the WND one. That's beautiful.
That's great too.
That's a great organization right there. Support WND, support Babylon Bee, support Epic News. These are great freedom-loving organizations that will get true news out to you, and allow you to make your own decisions and not listen to the beat of the liberal press.
There's literally no way this video is going to make it on YouTube. Go ahead. Anyways.
So the answer that they gave us a year and a half ago, Joe, was this: we need to reach herd immunity.
Oh, that's right.
And here's what herd immunity was. Herd immunity was getting to the point where 70% of the people either had COVID or were vaccinated against getting the disease. I don't know how close we are to that, but vaccinated Americans are 50% of the population. I don't know if 20% of the population got COVID, but by the old standards, we've got to be awfully close to herd immunity, right? Now, I'm going to almost guarantee you this, that they will move the goalpost on that.
Of course, because they're going to say that was based on the original virus, not the Delta variant, because that's what Biden said a couple days ago. That information was true at the time. Now we know about X, Y, or Z. And that's frustrating. It's frustrating.
It sure is. It sure is. So let me try to answer this question with this bit of information too, Joe. When the FDA approved the vaccines for emergency use, they did so under federal law, and part of that law allowed or had the FDA say this. The memo states on page 1, this is since December 20th, since September 2020. The FDA granted EUAs, that's emergency use authorization, for COVID shots. In each of these authorizations, FDA imposed the, quote, option to accept or refuse condition, end quote. The memo then correctly notes that the FDA fact sheet states it is your choice to receive or not receive the COVID shots. Despite, now I'm going to go on and tell you what the government, I'm going to try to answer your question with what the government wants to do now. Despite this clear option by the FDA to accept or refuse, despite that clear language, and despite admitting the FDA has publicly affirmed this option to accept or refuse, our present Department of Justice, they have released a memo that says it does not mean you have the option to refuse. Now listen to this. The option to accept or refuse, the DOJ asserts, is met merely by telling people they have the option to accept or refuse. You're not going to believe the rest of this statement that came out of the U.S. Department of Justice. They say that your right to accept or refuse the shots is met merely by telling people that they have the option to accept or refuse, and that once told, people can be forced to take these shots. This is akin to interpreting the Miranda rights to mean once you have been told you have the option to remain silent, then you can be forced to talk. This is absurd.
Makes no sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. And it's absolutely insane to me that the Department of Justice would take the present law and twist it to say, all you need to do is be informed. You can accept or reject a shot. Now we're forcing you to take the shot because you've been informed. Right. Are you kidding me? That's where we are, Joe, with lunacy. This COVID thing. Yeah. It's lunacy.
Yeah.
So part of your answer to your question might be, this isn't going to stop until every known American citizen of whatever age, maybe it's 12 and up now, has this shot, and we're not stopping until that happens. and they're going to have to hold me down in a straitjacket.
So do you think Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson helped with that legislation or with that?
Absolutely. Not only that, I just read about.
These guys must be raking it in.
I can't remember the total number of billions of dollars of profit that all three of these.
Oh, it's got to be outrageous.
Just from the COVID-19 vaccine.
Can't even
imagine. And it's among the three of them, I think it's above $10 billion in profit just from COVID-19 vaccines.
I'm okay with businesses being profitable. Obviously,
absolutely.
I want businesses to make money and do well. But not like this.
Here's another reason for confusion. There was a White House spokesperson. I think she's second because she's the deputy press secretary, and Fox asked her about mandatory COVID vaccinations, and she said they're being discussed in the White House right now. And then the next day, the White House had backed away from that and said, we're not considering. That's not on the table.
They did say that they were going to consider it for federal employees. And for
yep,
for
yep.
White House staffers,
yep,
and I think there was another group of people, but yeah, did they back down from that?
Not from that. This was for the whole country.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is from the whole country. This is a quote from this lady. Her name is Karen Jean-Pierre. To be clear, here is what President Biden said this week. More vaccinations and mask wearing in the areas most impacted by the Delta variant will enable us to avoid the kind of lockdowns, shutdowns, school closures, and disruptions we faced in 2020. We are not going back to that.
No.
So, but yet...
I'm not going back to it no matter what.
Well... I can tell you this, neither is my wife. If there is a private enterprise that says you must wear a mask to enter, she isn't going to go there unless she winds up with no options to get that product that she needs from anywhere. Yeah. She's not going to do it.
No, I won't.
And it's just so... we're hearing these conflicted reports. Quite frankly, Joe, here's something that I really believe. I believe that the White House knows if they mandate vaccinations, they will have some kind of peaceful revolt by 175 million people on this virus.
Sure.
It's just incidentally, speaking of that, I printed out this map last night. This map shows state vaccination exemption, state by state, and there's three of them. There's medical, religious, and philosophical reasons. Many states allow you to exempt yourself from a vaccination on all three of those incidences. New York State, which is where we dwell, shame on us, but that's where we are.
Happily, right?
Yeah, we're smiling that we're ruled by King Cuomo. The only thing that is legitimate for a vaccine exemption in New York State right now is medical. You can no longer use religious objections, philosophical objections. They're gone. It can only be medical, and that's a crock in my mind, where no longer, if you're of a faith that says I don't want a vaccine, that you can no longer use that in New York State to exempt yourself from the vaccine.
They've said a couple things like we no longer have a pandemic amongst the unvaccinated. Have you heard them say this?
I have not, but that does not surprise me.
But okay, you're not vaccinated.
Nope.
You're a smart man.
Yep. Reasonably so, some would say.
On the spectrum of, right? You're a smart man.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
My choice.
My goodness, if you get COVID, right, and it affects you in a way, that was your choice.
That's my choice.
Bob, are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, I respect you enough to say, look, this guy knows what's going on. He has this option. He's chosen not to take it, or he's chosen to take it. There you go. You have made your choice.
And
I think that's that's the beauty of America.
That's the beauty of freedom.
That's right.
It's the beauty of freedom. And I may get the vaccine if this thing goes through its normal procedure and it's found out that, hey, we needed to tweak this or tweak that, or it's okay exactly the way that it is. It's passed all the tests. That may be. Frankly, I rethink this decision on a regular and ongoing basis.
You sound very reasonable, and I need you to stop. But that's the thing. Isn't that the thing? Like, Americans are thinking this way. Well, maybe I'll get it. Maybe if it actually gets FDA approved, I'll feel more comfortable and I'll get it. Or maybe if they say, hey, we got to tweak it a little bit here, or this has to be done to it, I'll get it. It seems reasonable. That's a normal thought process for somebody. You should have the right as an American citizen to take all of the information, make a choice for yourself, and that's what you do.
I'll give you 2 bits of information, and then we'll jump to the next issue. I hope we can get to it soon. Number one, I just read an article this morning that Australia, it's got to be tested further. It's in testing right now. They have come out with a spray, a nose spray, that kills 99.9% of all viruses. Can't remember if it was bacteria as well, but all viruses that could enter your body from a respiratory standpoint, including SARS, VARS, COVID-19, and all the variants.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine if this, and maybe this takes another year for testing and stuff like that you can take a nasal spray and walk anywhere you want to walk, including going into, if you're a nurse or a doctor,
sure,
going into a place where there is some other virus. Maybe it's not COVID-19. Maybe it's a new virus that creeps
sure
up. And you can go spray and walk in there and say, you know what? I am 99.9%.
I think Trump called that stuff bleach, right?
Yeah. He was nuts when he said that.
I know.
Oh, my goodness. But think about that. Israel is working on another type of vaccine that is much more closely related to the way vaccines have worked in the past rather than the mRNA kind of thing that they're doing now. But in any event, progress is taking place.
Sure, of course.
And I don't know whether or not waiting is going to be the right answer. You know, if I wind up with COVID and it kills me, to your point, Joe, that's a decision I made. I don't want COVID-19. I certainly don't want to die from it. But I'm taking the path that I want to take as a
and that's
reasonable,
your right.
as a
and I
reasonable,
respect
as
that.
a reasonable American.
And everybody should respect that.
U.S. Capitol Police, just one final thing on COVID. The U.S. Capitol Police, actually, Nancy Pelosi, who's nothing short of an unbelievably, evil authoritarian in her position.
That was nice. Thank you.
Said that anybody that comes to the Capitol that's not wearing a mask needs to be arrested. Yep. Joe. And the Capitol Police pushed back. And
employees
said,
too.
Employees too. Anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
They exempted the elected officials.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, senators, congresspeople,
White House people, secretaries.
But if you were a staffer, they could arrest. Yep.
Okay. So, but the U.S. Capitol Police, in one of their few sensible, logical responses, said, "No, we're not doing that. If you don't have a mask on, we're going to ask you to put a mask on. If you don't put a mask on, we're going to ask you to leave."
Yeah.
That and you know, it's just it's crazy where we're. And what about schools? Where do we stand on schools starting in September? I just read an article yesterday that one of the main people that represents health and welfare for the New York State public school system said Governor Cuomo hasn't told us anything yet. We don't know what to do yet.
We've gotten a letter from our kids' school that says that they fully intend to open as normal. Desks not separated by 6 feet, no barriers, no masks, right back to normal at this point. And we are praying that happens.
Amen.
Although we were thankful for the school that our kids they were open 5 days in person last year.
Yep.
They did have masks. They did have some distancing, but they were open. And we appreciated that. That was very important for our kids. And I actually, my heart goes out to the kids who were forced to do distance learning for the last year and a half. I don't think that they got the education that they deserved. I think that it's gonna hinder them. I think for the young ones, the kindergartners and the first graders and who are developing their social skills. Man, I can't imagine what it did to that. we have friends that have it was like a 1-year-old at the time, never seen anybody without a mask.
Yeah.
Like, it's just sad to me. And so I'm thankful for where things are at with my kids' school right now, and I'm hoping that it ends up being kind of just back to a normal school year this year in September.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what's going to take place, the strongest, most powerful union in New York State is the teachers union. And if they don't buy in, if by chance our evil governor says schools can open the way they were 3 years ago, if he doesn't get the union to buy in, it ain't going to happen.
I think that the teachers union has, I don't know, I think that some of their stronghold is breaking at the same time. I don't think that parents are going to take the amount of crap that they've been dealt from the schools and from the teachers, much longer. I think that the distance learning actually opened up a window into the classroom, and I think a lot of parents disagreed with what their teachers were. They're not teaching kids like, hey, America started in 1776, or this president did this or that. They're teaching a philosophy, their personal philosophy about our country, in every. It doesn't matter what subject. And parents are fed up with that. They want their kids to be taught facts. They want their kids to be taught to love their country and to and I think that the teachers have been caught red-handed because the classroom has now been brought into the home over the past year, and they've really seen what's being taught. And I've seen video after video of school board meetings where parents are just livid at the school board and the teachers for what's being taught in the classroom. And I actually think that it's kind of bit them, that they've kind of been exposed in a way.
So this obviously could lead into CRT.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And so what do you say to the critical race theory? I think it might have a couple of goals, but certainly one of the goals is to convince the kids that white is bad, black is good.
Yeah,
white are the oppressors and blacks are the oppressed.
Yeah, I mean,
from the inception of this nation,
no doubt about it. Yeah, there's no doubt that that's the kind of underlying, but what it does ultimately, in my opinion, is it keeps everybody, it segregates everybody.
It sure does.
Right? And it almost brings everybody into these different tribes, right? I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about it as tribalism. And when that happens, tribes fight with each other.
You got the Hatfield and McCoys.
And it's not, it doesn't bring people together. It doesn't restore anything. All it does is it causes me to be angry at you because you look different than me.
Right.
That's going backwards, in my opinion. Isn't that like
absolutely?
It's going backwards.
Absolutely.
And but at the same time, if the country as a whole isn't united, it's easier to keep the country at bay. You know what I mean? When the country isn't coming together against the government or in a way that's unified, we could say, oh, we need to do this for this group, we need to do this for this, and it puts everybody against each other, and it just makes it so that the government can keep all the power and the people don't have any of the power because everybody is so divided that they, you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. What do you say, Joe, to the teacher? And I heard this, although it was a rant by this teacher. She said, I'm sick and tired of the parents that don't want us to teach the truth.
Yeah, I saw that.
Of our history. The fact that we brought black people over from Africa to be slaves, that when this country began, slaves were not treated as, couldn't be a citizen. They were not treated as whole human beings. And our kids need to be taught that that's how whites became supreme and remain supreme today. Why is it wrong to teach the kids the truth of our history?
Bob, it's not wrong to teach right? You would agree. It's not wrong to teach the truth of our country and its roots. And I don't think that anybody would say that we did it perfectly. We went to a war over it with ourselves.
That's right.
That's right. The Civil War was about this.
Yep.
Our country divided over this very topic, right? And
Yes,
it
they
blows
did.
my mind. It's like we didn't keep it that way. We didn't keep it so that we could have slaves and we could oppress people.
Correct.
That's not what happened.
Correct.
We fought against that.
Yeah. Yep. I agree, and I think you're right. The truth is always the right thing to speak. It's always the right thing to teach. And where we were 200 years ago is far, far away from where we are.
It's not even close.
It's not even close. There are federal laws, anti-discrimination laws, that have virtually stopped almost 100% of discrimination in the workplace, in public places. You just can't be discriminated against without breaking a federal law. Now, I think you're right, Joe. I think the purpose of CRT is Marxist in its core, and that is to make us the divided states of America.
That's right.
Instead of the United States of America. We will no longer have a country that we look up to and say, yes, we did things wrong. These were blemishes on the birth of this nation that are no longer blemishes, right? They've been removed by us growing up as moral people that recognize, and this again goes back to the Bible, right, where every human being is made in the image of God. That's right. And therefore has the same amount of value,
correct,
intrinsic value in them. And that's certainly how you and I believe, Joe. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best. I want to see a day in this country when we're not judged by the color of our skin, but by our character, right?
The content of our character.
Content of our character. That is a one sentence statement that sums up where I think every country-loving, God-fearing American wants us to be. That we're no longer judged by it. It's the content of your character. And yet, Joe Biden, he's being challenged and he's losing. He created a program for farmers and other entrepreneurs that said, we've got federal money for you, but minorities come in first. So if you're white, no need to apply, or you can apply, but if the money's gone before it gets to you because it went to minorities, you don't get it. Well, one judge said, if there is a description of discrimination, that's it. That's it. So that's been canceled. But here we've got the chief executive of the United States of America, the president of the United States, causing discrimination by the laws that he wants, either executive orders that he signed or laws that he's passing. If we can move from CRT now, which we didn't talk a lot about, and there's more to talk about, how about inflation, Joe? I just read an article. Let me read this quote to you out of this article. Economists and investors have widely shifted their spectrum of concerns from slow growth, high unemployment, and deflationary pressures at the beginning of 2021 to now inflation. Quote, you can't speak to anyone in the investment field without having the fear of inflation come to the forefront. This guy's name was Robert Johnson. He's professor of finance at Hyder College of Business, Creighton University. He said some economists have expressed concerns that if prices accelerate too fast and stay high for too long, expectations of further price increases will take hold, driving up demand for wages and potentially triggering the kind of wage price spiral that plagued the economy in the 70s. Meanwhile, more than 80% of Americans are concerned about inflation, according to a survey by Skynova, which also indicated that 61% feel inflation will negatively impact their lifestyles.
Of course. I told my wife the other day, everybody could be a billionaire if the dollar's worth nothing.
Exactly.
Right? And you could have $1 billion awesome. If that doesn't buy you jack, then what?
What's causing the inflation, Joe?
Government spending.
Government
printing,
spending.
printing money,
Exactly.
and we're flooding our economy with all this money. Right? They just extended buying bonds. The government's going to continue buying bonds. I think we're going to be $30 trillion in the next a year or so. I mean, I feel like I've never seen a government put out these multi-trillion-dollar spending packages, just one after another, after another, after another. I can't believe it.
So you're right, Joe. You're 100% right. For those out there that don't understand inflation, it is not that the cost of products increases. It's that the value of your U.S. dollar decreases.
Right.
So, when a loaf of bread in 1960 was 39 cents, and I don't know what it was, it's still only worth 39 cents at the value of the dollar back then. The problem is it's $3 today. Let's make it easy. It's $3.90 today, and therefore the dollar is worth 10% of what it was back then, in my hypothetical example, right? The loaf of bread is still only worth what it's worth. We just have to pay more for it because your government continues to spend money that it doesn't have. And we have people in power, like de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, that says the federal government should continue to push these multi-trillion-dollar spending bills because the government can just print more money. Well, this is what you get, Mayor de Blasio. This is what you get. Incidentally, the rate of inflation right now, Joe, there was an article this morning in the Epic Times that said it hasn't been this high since 1991. That's 30 years. That's 30 years.
Here you go. Value of the dollar in 1950, $11.27.
I was pretty close.
You were close.
I was pretty close.
Almost 10%. It's more than 10%, but it's a 1,000% essentially decrease.
That's why a car back then cost $3,500 or $4,000, and today it costs $35,000 or $40,000. That's exactly why.
That's outrageous.
It is outrageous, and we can thank the federal government for doing that.
Going away from the gold standard. I mean, that was a long time ago, but I mean, now we just print it.
There's another, Nixon did a couple of idiotic things. He opened China. He stopped the U.S. dollar from being gold backed.
Sure.
Crazy things that he did.
I went to Washington, D.C. Was it early 2019? COVID started March of 19. That's when all the lockdowns started. I was in Washington, D.C. about a month before.
Okay.
We went to the Bureau of Engraving and Printing where they make the paper money.
Yeah.
Which was super cool.
It had to be.
It was awesome. And we got to tour it, and I was blown away at just the stacks and stacks and stacks of money that they were just printing.
Yep.
And I just think to myself, like, it hasn't stopped. They just keep on printing money.
They just keep on printing it.
They keep putting it out there, and
maybe it's just to replace worn out.
Probably, yeah. It's like a cotton fabric.
Right.
You got to get rid of that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
So anyway, they print the money, and then the major banks, they buy it.
Yep.
And then
there is I've mentioned this before in this show, there is a book that if you are intrigued at all about inflation in the economy, it's called The Creature on Jekyll Island. It's a big book. The book is a nonfiction book, but it reads like a novel. You can't put the thing down. I can't remember, it's 600 pages or something like that. And it's just unbelievable, the knowledge that this guy shares with a person that reads it like me. I'm not an economist.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this stuff, I lose grasp of it pretty quickly. He brought it down to me, and it's well worth the read. It's really.
What was the title again?
The Creature on Jekyll Island, which Jekyll Island is an island off the coast of Georgia, and essentially in just a 30-second deal, it's where a half a dozen of the most rich and powerful people on the planet got together to create the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor does it have any money, believe it or not, in order to control the wealth of the world. That was the desire of these men. It included men like the Morgans and the Fairchilds and the Rockefellers. There was a senator involved, and I can tell you this, that when it got pushed through Congress and the bill was put onto President Wilson's desk, and he signed the bill to create the Federal Reserve, again, a name created so that if the name was the central bank, it never would have passed. But when the American public heard the word Federal Reserve or the phrase Federal Reserve, it sounds good.
Yeah.
It sounds good.
Sure.
Wilson signed that bill, and I think weeks later said, I may just have destroyed the United States of America, something like that.
Is this the one by G. Edward Griffin?
G. Edward Griffin. And it is so worth the read. It's unbelievable.
I'll put the link in the description to Amazon so you can just click it if you want to get the book. I'll put it on there.
It's worth it. You read one chapter in this book, I'm telling you right now, you can't put it down.
Yeah.
You cannot put it down. It's written so well. Well, I want to move, Joe, in the remaining minutes that we have. We have the United States Supreme Court going to be taking a case about the legality of abortion.
Okay.
It's being brought forth by the state of Mississippi, and the attorney general there has made her case and her opinion known, and that is that there is nothing in the U.S. Constitution that gives anyone the right to kill another person. As a matter of fact, she brings in the 14th Amendment that indicates, and has always indicated since 1973, the Roe v. Wade decision, that the United States of America has always considered born and unborn individuals as people.
Sure.
That's why if you killed a pregnant woman,
you got charged for
charged for 2 murders.
That's right.
You got charged for 2 murders. And so she is going to say that there is nowhere in the U.S. Constitution, nowhere, that this was an incredibly huge mistake, a deathly mistake by the court at the time to say, to use the right of privacy to pass Roe v. Wade. She's got a very, very, very good case saying that the argument that Planned Parenthood, or the government in this case, has is both morally insufficient and very legally dubious.
Bob, I don't know if this is, I don't think this is a step too far to say, but where slavery was the stain on America many, many years ago, I think abortion is equally as horrible of a stain on America right now.
Joe, that's a great statement, because I think
I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to, they're both awful.
Yep.
They're both terrible. I'm embarrassed at the fact that our country does this. This is the argument of today, in my opinion.
I don't think we killed 73 million black people, did we?
No, but I don't want to.
No, we're not downplaying.
Be careful. I'm not downplaying what slavery was.
We're
horrible. Obviously, a stain on our history, and we did a lot to fight and to change that. But right now, there's so much there's so much in America right now that's positive towards abortion. It's disgusting. It's horrible. It's murder. And this is what we need to be fighting against right now.
So this, I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because I have a quote from Abraham Lincoln. And let me give you this whole quote that came out of an article that I read. The relevant legal and moral question in the antebellum slavery debate, Abraham Lincoln famously argued in his 1854 Peoria speech, is, quote, whether a Negro is not or is a man.
Yep.
End quote.
It's the same argument. Isn't
exactly
it the same argument?
So too is the relevant question in the abortion debate whether the unborn child is not or is a person. Modern science actually answers that question quite definitively. That baby is a human being from conception.
Yeah.
And so now, with your intro there, not even knowing I had this quote,
I didn't.
Abraham Lincoln was obviously right. a Negro, as he puts it, a black man, an African American, or an African, or any color skin of any descent is a man.
Yeah.
Is a man with the same God-given rights of any other color human being. Abraham Lincoln was right. As you said, the Civil War changed our whole approach to slavery, to black people being second-class citizens, and now we need to take that step in abortion, in my opinion. And it's going to take. I think there's been 206 Republican either senators or congressmen that have signed on to this case. There are, I don't know if every Republican governor has signed on in behalf of the state of Mississippi on this, but there is a big movement to change this law. And if it does, if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, there's a couple of ways this can go. One way is that it can be pushed back to the states.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a mistake. I think the Supreme Court needs to go farther than that. I think because the states will then make their own decisions, like the state we live in. Our governor and most everybody in our legislature doesn't care whether the body in the womb is human or not. It's the woman's choice, my body, my choice, which incidentally, we're the liberals on that with regard to the vaccine, my body, my choice. But we need to once again recognize that the body inside the woman is a human being and deserves all the rights and protections of one that is outside of the womb.
Right. Yeah.
And the church will step up. Good people will step up. There are many cases right now of unplanned pregnancies, and we need to address that issue, but that issue will be morally and rightly addressed. And I'm convinced it will by the goodwill of the American people.
There's a church in Arizona, Apologia Church. Jeff Durbin is the pastor.
Okay, yeah.
They have a program where they'll adopt kids, unwanted babies.
Joe,
they're going through, and they've got a pretty big YouTube presence if you feel like looking into it. But James White is also involved in that church. But a lot of the argument is, well, everybody. The woman doesn't want to have the baby, and you don't want her to have an abortion, but you're forcing her to keep that baby. And they're like, we'll adopt that baby.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that amazing?
That's wonderful. And we know that just as the general way it is, there are many, many, many more parents willing to adopt than there are babies being put up for adoption.
That's interesting. I wonder if adoption law or the difficulty in adopting, if that was somehow changed and somehow made so that it was an easier process to maybe adopt a baby, from a mother who, maybe didn't intend to get pregnant or whatever. If that changed, if it would decrease the abortion rate.
Think, Joe, for a minute on that topic. Think for a minute. If in the last 40 years, just say 40 years, in the last 20 years, our government spent as much time and money promoting adoption as it does abortion.
Could you imagine?
Can you imagine first of all, I think God would incredibly bless this nation for that, which we are not getting right now because of our stance to some degree. And think where we would be with a program, with PSAs, with public service announcements, talking about the ease with which the government would help parents to adopt that wanted to adopt children.
Imagine the people who could have been born, and what scientific advancements they could have come up with. How the Lord could have used them in a way to, like a Billy Graham or something, or just the potential.
You're 100% correct. We don't know who we've murdered,
That's
what
right.
they would have added to society.
That's right.
We just don't know. But one thing we do know is that person in the womb is just that.
A person.
Yeah. And it is a different person from the mom. Incidentally, there is I'll end with this. There is a new flag, a pro-life flag that's been introduced, and it is a beautiful flag. I just ordered 2 of them yesterday, and it is a flag to allow us to show where we stand on life. If you choose to do it, I think if you Google pro-life flag, it's going to come up. It's got two feet in the center of it, one pink, one blue. It's got 2 hands. It's in a circle, and it's got 2 hands around those 2 feet, one on top and one on bottom. That circle indicating the womb, the hands around that circle indicating the loving hands of its mother. The 2 feet, of course, pink and blue can represent a boy or a girl. It can also represent the fact that there are 2 lives involved here, the mom and the kids. There are 2 lines going horizontal across the flag, also in pink and blue, indicating the equality of the life within the womb, as well as the mom herself. And again, it's pink and blue, boy and girl. And it was a design created by a woman, I think from Argentina. It was South America. So that's the flag.
Yeah. I don't know if that's visible on the camera.
So that's the flag, and the reason they wanted a flag was because they said, if you look at other entities in the United States that have flags, they're just showing what they believe in. Sure. It's just taking a stance for your belief, and I think that is a beautiful. There's also bumper stickers, which I bought 5 or 6 of those. I don't have a bumper sticker on my car, but I'm gonna. And so for anybody that, I think the flags are $25 and the bumper stickers $1.50.
Where did you get it?
From whatever organization.
Okay. We could do that too. We could put that link on in the description too. That's something that you want to spend your dollars on, then we encourage that.
We don't make any money on it.
No, nothing.
As a matter of fact, you get an opportunity for every flag that's purchased. They want to give money back to some of those that helped create this.
Yeah.
There has to be 200 pro-life organizations, including Democrats for Life.
That's great.
That you can help to support. And I think I supported Students for Life because I think college students today that are willing to stand up for life on the uber liberal college campuses today, I think they are some of the most bold, courageous people that are in the United States of America today.
Yeah, they're in the lion's den.
They are in the lion's den, absolutely. Joe, our time has certainly run out. It was great getting back.
It was.
I hope we don't wait
that was a long time.
Last time.
That was a long time.
Saturday, this is a Saturday morning. It's a good time for me a lot of the time. And, we're here to discuss current events and how they relate to our faith. We didn't get to talk about how they related to our faith today because it's been so long since we last talked. We have these crucial issues that just keep getting pushed at us. But these do affect our faith.
They do.
They have, the COVID stuff has shut down churches. It's in some areas. Maine, as an example, is still holding churches to a certain number of people every square foot, even though if you're in a restaurant, it doesn't hold true. And a Calvary Chapel church in Maine is taking that to their court system. There is still going to be problems. And for those of you of the Christian faith that are truly born again, stand your ground, right?
Yeah,
Make sure you put on the full armor of God, because as Paul says, the reason you put that on is so that when the battle is over, you're still able to stand.
That's right.
And we need to stand. We need to stand for the Lord Jesus Christ, who stands for love. He stands for compassion. He stands for care. He is the only way to get into heaven. You must be born again, the Bible says. We stand for all life being equal.
That's right.
And we stand for freedom. Those in Christ, when Christ sets you free, you will be free indeed. And one of the wonderful things, as you said an hour ago, Joe, is the fact that for the most part, this country allows us freedoms, which just gives us the opportunity to be the people that God wants us to be.
That's right.
right? So, Joe, have a great vacation.
Thank you.
Enjoy yourself. Be safe and have a good time. And thanks for reaching out to me to start this up.
I'm glad we did it.
God bless you.
Glad. You too.